say it's mincha time, if you're having a meal, a formal meal, you should pray first and then have the meal. But the Mishnah stated, if you started the Mishnah is talking about a case that you started to eat, um, let's say early in the day, let's say early, we're saying it's already mincha time, let's say, but even the Gemara Mishnah says even if a half hour before mincha, you should not start a meal. Let's say 12, if mincha, let's say today is around 12:30, is the opening bell for mincha, a half hour after chatzot. So already at 12 o'clock, a person should not, a half hour before, he should not start a meal. But that's according to one opinion in the Gemara, and you can't start the meal. But if you started the meal, the Mishnah says you could go ahead and continue the meal. You can continue the meal, and after you finish the meal, then you can pray, as long as you know there'll be enough time to pray. Now, so the Mishnah started off saying, it says, so the Mishnah stated, and second point, the Mishnah says that you stop for Kriya Shema, and you do not stop for tefillah. You don't stop for davening. That's the end of the Mishnah. So we have two statements in the Mishnah. One statement was, if you started, you don't stop. And then it says another statement, you don't stop for tefillah. So the Gemara's understanding is talking about the same thing. What does it mean you don't stop? You started your meal. You started at 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock. You can continue eating. That's what the Gemara is understanding that it means. So the question is, it seems like the Mishnah is repeating itself. It's telling us twice that you don't need to stop to pray once you started your meal. So that's the issue of the Gemara. So the Gemara says, you say if you start, you do not have to stop. And then you say mafsikin the Kriya Shema, and then you tell me you have to stop for Kriya Shema. Hatani l'reisha, you already told me you told me you stop for Kriya Shema, and you don't stop for Tefillah. So Hatani l'reisha, you told me in the reisha, aim mafsikin. You already told me you don't stop once you started the meal. So that's the Gemara. You don't need to stop. So that's the Gemara's question. Why do you need to tell me twice you don't need to stop? The Gemara says, by the way, it's an interesting halacha, right? It's an halacha that you did something you were not supposed to do. You shouldn't have started at 12 o'clock your meal. You shouldn't have washed the bread and have your meal at 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock. But yet, once you went in and you did it, the rabbis did not feel you have to stop. They said you don't have to interrupt your meal to stop to pray. You could go ahead, as long as you know you'll have enough time to pray, you could go ahead and continue eating. But you don't have to tell me that law twice. That's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara says that it's the second part of the Mishnah is not referring to the case where you started eating at a time that you should have, Mincha already came, the window of Mincha came, you should not have started. That's not what we're talking about. That's the beginning of the Mishnah. The Sefer, the end of the Mishnah, Atan l'divrei Torah. It's referring to a group of people who are, let's say, the Gemara is going to identify people who Toroto Natam. These are people that learn Torah in the whole day, the whole night, so to speak. And those people that are middle of their learning, they have to stop that type of level of learning that they were on. They have to stop for Kriya Shema and the aim of Sikin L'Tfilah. Those people, when it says you don't have to stop to pray, and you just pray later, that's not referring to people who started mincha. It's referring to people who are middle of their learning. Good morning, Emmanuel. They're middle of their learning. They don't need to stop to pray. These are people. Now, the Kriya Shema of the morning, we know the Kriya Shema has a certain window of time. You have to say the Kriya Shema by 3 hours into the day, depending how much an hour of the day is, depending on the length of the day. Some days are shorter, some days are longer. Let's say today the day begins very, it's very late. Sunrise is very late. So but the day is very short. So the 3 hours into the, you split the day into 12 parts, and each part is one of the hours of the day. So you have to do, Kriya Shema has to be done by 3 hours of the day. According to the Vilna Gaon, he calculates from sunrise to sunset, split that into 12 parts, and three parts is the first, if that's the starting from sunrise, you have 3 hours into the day to say the Kriya Shema. The other opinions say the Kriya Shema, you calculate the day from dawn, which could be around 72 minutes or so before sunrise, until evening, split that into 12 parts. And being that you start from dawn to 3 hours, you're going to see that's an earlier time for Kriya Shema. And that's why you'll see on the calendars there are different times for Kriya Shema. There's the Magen Avraham, there's the Vilna Gaon, because the question is, how do you calculate the day, those three parts of the day? But the Kriya Shema at the end of the day has a three, and people have to be careful and be aware. Let's say this Shabbat, I presume the earliest month for Kriya Shema most probably is around, I'm guessing around 8:45 or so, and the second Zman is around 9:30 or so. So people have to be careful to say the Shema, before those times. If you want to fulfill both opinions, so you must probably, if you say it by 8:30 in the morning, you're great. And if you miss the first Zman, you go for the second Zman, go for the second one. But the Kriya Shema, good morning, Emmanuel and Asaf. The Kriya Shema of the morning has a window of 3 hours into the day. And people are not aware of that. People think they say the Shema, they got the mitzvah Shema. You have to say the Shema by a certain time to fill the biblical mitzvah. It's a very specific time that the Kriya Shema in the daytime has to be said. And the night Kriya Shema, really you have the whole night to say the whole night Kriya Shema. Of course, you don't want to wait so late, and you're supposed to say it before midnight. You don't want to delay anyways the mitzvah in general. Now, the Kriya Shema, the time of Kriya Shema is Minat Torah, and therefore, even if someone who is involved in the mitzvah of study of Torah, and he's studying Torah the whole day and the whole night, he still has to stop to read the Kriya Shema, the Shema, at its time. He has to stop to say the Shema in the morning. He has to stop to say the Shema in the evening. But the time for davening, prayer, now according to the Rambam, prayer is Minat Torah. One, pray every day, according to the Rambam, is short tefillah. A short prayer is enough to pray, to fill your biblical mitzvah of prayer. And the Amidah that we do is a rabbinic mitzvah. And therefore, those people who are on the level of Torah, that they study Torah day and night, so we could say the rabbis said that they don't need to stop to pray the Amidah, because they involved in the Torah study the whole day. And let's say, I would say they will fulfill their responsibility of praying. They'll say a short prayer at some time during that day and that night, and that will be enough for them. They will fulfill the biblical mitzvah with the short prayer, and they will not say the Amidah. They will not say the Shemona Esrei. They will be exempt. Now, I don't think anybody today no one today is on this level that we say that the Torah is their level of study in a way that they do not have to stop to pray. There's no rabbi. I mean, I remember Moshe Feinstein stopping to, he prayed Amidah. He did not say, Torah to Umnoto, that he's on this level that he does not need to stop to pray the Amidah, to pray. So, but there was a time period that people were on that level that they said that they did not need to stop their learning to pray the Amidah. So that's what the Mishnah is saying. The Tanya, Chaverim shayoskim b'Torah. Our Mishnah is saying this law that's found in the Braita, that people on this level who are engaged in Torah study, mafsikin the Kriya Shema. They need to stop their learning to recite the Kriya Shema, because the Kriya Shema is a window. If you don't stop, you lose it. You either lose the day Kriya Shema if you don't stop your learning in the morning in order to say Kriya Shema, because like we said, Shema has until 3 hours in the day, and you have the night. If the night learning, if you don't stop your learning at night, you say the Kriya Shema, but in the night, the night goes over, poof, the Kriya Shema is gone. You lost out the mitzvah. Now, that's what Chaverim Shayuskim Torah mafsikin the Kriya Shema. They stop what they're doing to recite the Kriya Shema. Ve'im mafsikin the Tefillah. They do not need to stop to pray the Amidah. And then the Gemara clarifies that Rabbi Yochanan lo shanu ela kegon Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai v'chaveirav. Who are these people that do not need to stop to pray the Amidah? That's Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. We all know about Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Unlike Ba'omer, him and his son, they were in the cave for many years, and they came out, and they revealed, he revealed the hidden Torah, the Zohar. So Shimon ben Yochai v'chaveirav, and him and his colleagues, Toratam umratam. This was a total focus of their learning, was a total focus. They didn't spend any time working. They were only learning day and night. Aval anu, but we are the people, we work part of the day. The rabbis in that time would stop learning to work. So if you stop learning to work, so anu shemafsik, us mafsikin, we definitely will stop our work to our learning to go ahead and pray the Amidah. We mafsikin, we will stop the Kriya Shema, to say Kriya Shema for sure. And even tefillah, even tefillah, which would be rabbinic, the Amidah, we would stop. Anybody have any questions? Is everything clear to everybody about the Kriya Shema? Okay. So the Gemara says, V'hatanya, the Gemara says the following. V'hatanya, we learned in a Braita, Kashem she'ein mafsikin l'tefillah, just like we do not stop for tefillah, that we don't stop for davening, kach ein mafsikin l'kriya shema. We said that there is, we don't even stop for kriya shema. So if you're telling me, so it seems contradictory. If you say that even someone who's tarotum noto, that even someone who learns day and night and doesn't work, does not need to stop to say the Amidah, right? But he has to stop to say Kriya Shema. So who is this person that the Braita says that you don't even need to stop to say the Shema, to fulfill the biblical mitzvah of Shema? So the Gemara says, Hitanyahi bi'ibu shana. That Braita is talking about when the rabbis would get together to decide if we have to make an extra month for the year. As you know, sometimes they have to make an Adar Sheni, 2 Adars. What do you need an Adar Sheni? Adar Sheni, because the Torah says that Pesach has to come out the Chodesh Aviv, in the springtime. And the Jewish year, as you know, we go by the moon. Our year goes every month. The cycle is a new moon every month. And that's how our months begin. So therefore, our year has 354 days. Approximately, and 354 days. Therefore, if you don't every few years, you lose, so to speak. It's not going to come out. You know, the April 15th, 354 days later will not be April 15th. Will be April 4th, and then next year will be March, late March, and then the next year would be the 354 days later. Every year we'll be getting because shaving off 11 days, around approximately 11 days on the calendar. And then if Pesach keeps on getting earlier, then Pesach will not fall out the Chodesh Aviv in the springtime. And Hashem, God, in His great mercy for the Jewish community, He showed His love and His great love for the Jewish community, better than saying mercy. He took us out at a very beautiful time in the springtime. So therefore, Hashem wants us to. Hashem has said in the Torah that the rabbis have to make sure that Pesach comes out during the spring. So how do the rabbis do that? Because by adding a month, the month of Adar, double Adar, that will go ahead, and if you extend Adar to make a double Adar, 2 months of Adar, therefore you added 30 days to the year. And that's why some years Pesach will come out later, some years Pesach will come out earlier, based on this situation. So we're talking about the rabbis that were involved in figuring out should they add another month this year or not, and they would go lock themselves, so to speak, in an attic or some other private area, and they would figure out, does it meet the requirements that we should go ahead and extend the year. And the holidays were dependent on the decision of the rabbis, because if the rabbis say we're going to extend the year, therefore the holidays will come out a month later, and they did not stop even to recite the Kriya Shema, because maybe we use the rule of, also there's the rule called Osek b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah. You're engaged in a mitzvah, you're exempt from a mitzvah. And usually, let's say we'll say that when you can't do both mitzvah, and that now, if you could do both mitzvot, you don't say you involve this mitzvah, you don't do the other mitzvah. But here, if they would stop, it would take away, it would detract from what that mitzvah that they're in the middle of, they're occupied doing, because they're in the middle of dealing with, figuring out, should we make an extra month or not. So they would stop, it would detract from the mitzvah that they're involved in. So therefore, they did not need to stop. That's what the Gemara. The Amar Rav Ada Bar Ava, Rav Ada Bar Ava says in the name V'chein Tonu Sabi de Gunya, and also Sabi de Gunya said, the elders of Hagunya said in a Braita, Amar Rav Elazar, Rav Sadak, Sheyinu Oskim B'Yiboshana B'Yavneh, when we were involved in extending the year by calculating if we should make an extra month or not, and the Avneh lo hayina mafsikin, we did not stop lo l'Kriyat Shema v'lo l'Tfilah, not to recite Kriyat Shema and not to recite Tfilah, not to do the Amidah. But the Chidush is that they didn't even stop to go ahead and recite the Kriyat Shema, because they were involved in that mitzvah of extending the year. They were exempt from the other mitzvah. Now the rule regarding Torah study in general. So now today nobody's in the level the Torah is, and the study of Torah in the level of Rav Shimon Yochai and his colleagues, that they will be exempt from stopping to pray. But let's say what's the law when you're in the middle? There is a general rule that when it comes to study of Torah, if you're studying Torah, you stop learning to do a mitzvah. The only time you study of Torah, you don't stop learning to do mitzvah if someone else could do that mitzvah. If, let's say, there's two brothers, I would say, and one brother's learning and one brother's, surfing the internet, and the dad says, I need someone to help me with something. So then the brother who's learning does not need to stop his learning if the other brother is able to do it, is able to take care of the mitzvah. Why should you don't need to stop your learning when the mitzvah could be done, someone else could be doing the mitzvah, and it's going to get done. But if nobody else is going to be doing the mitzvah, then we say, you have to stop, you have to close your sefer and do it. That's the general rule in general when it comes to when you're involved in the study of Torah. Do I have to close my sefer? Do I have to interrupt my learning to do a mitzvah? That would depend. Can someone else do the mitzvah and not you. So if the job can get done, then we say you're since you're involved in your mitzvah of Torah study, you do not need to stop to go ahead and do that mitzvah. Okay. Now let's continue in the Gemara, the Mishnah. So the Mishnah states, "Lo yitzei hachayat b'machto." It says in the Mishnah. Maybe we'll take out the Shulchan Aruch on what we just said. The Shulchan Aruch, I'm seeking the Kriya Shema. I'm going to get out the Shulchan Aruch. Let's see what it says here. Okay. Mafsikin the Kriya Shema. So it says Simin Kufvav Sif Beis. Sif Bet. Let's see what it says. Kufvav Sif Bet. So he says, Mi Shetoroto Umnoto, someone whose Torah is his umnoto, this is his profession, that he learns the Torah every day, day and night. He doesn't stop, he doesn't work. He goes on Shim Yochai v'Chavirav, Shim Yochai and his friends. Mafsik l'Kriya Shema. They stop to say the Kriya Shema, even though they're in the middle of their learning. Below the Tefillah, people like that would not need to stop for davening, Famidah. Avul anu, but us, mafsikin being the Kriya Shema, being the Tefillah. We go ahead and we stop. If to say the Kriya Shema, or to pray. So what does the Chafetz Chaim say? Chafetz Chaim says, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, they did not involve themselves in work. They weren't working at all. Then he said they did not stop their learning even a rega, even a moment, even a second. They did not stop their learning. But we, he says, we who do stop learning for other things, for work, certainly we have to stop our learning to pray. So then he says, what's the difference between Kriya Shema and davening? Why was there a difference between that they stopped to say the Kriya Shema, but they did not stop for davening Amidah? So he says, because really, like we said, Kriya Shema is Menat Torah. Davening is rabbinic. And he says, even if we hold that prayer like the Rambam every day praying is Menat Torah, good morning, but nevertheless, it was one time a day, like we said before. I would say, he says, because one time a day you'd be able to fulfill the mitzvah any time during the day. Now, and you would not need to pray 3 times a day. Okay, so that's let's continue in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says the following: the Chayat is a guy who's a tailor. The Mishnah states cannot go out with his needle close to dark. If it's close to dark, remember our Masechtas, we're referring to the issues of carrying on Shabbat. The Mishnah states that talks about the prohibition of carrying from private property to public property, or public property to private property, or carrying 4 amot. These are some of the laws of carrying, or 4 amot in public property you can't carry. But the Mishnah is going back, this Mishnah is going back to focusing on those laws, certain fences that were created in order now to make sure that people shouldn't violate the Shabbat. So it says, "Lo yitzeh chayav b'machto." A tailor should not go out with his needle. Let's say he's holding a needle in his hand, according to one opinion in the Gemara. Some might learn that we're talking about the needle is in his, stuck his needle into his garment. We'll see exactly how the needle is being held, but he cannot go out with the needle. We are on 11a3. Cannot go out with the needle close to dark, close to shkiyah, close to sunset. As you know, the time that we have to refrain from work on Friday before Shabbat, there's the time called when it's the seventh day, and the seventh day could begin, at sunset already. It might be already the seventh day, and therefore we cannot do work from sunset. But also there is something called Tosfot Shabbat. You're supposed to add to the Shabbat. You shouldn't do work exactly up to the moment of Shabbat. Rather, you should add to the Shabbat, so therefore you should add maybe at least 2 minutes before sunset that you should refrain from work. Yes, we light the candles around 18 minutes before sunset. We light the candles. So here it says in the Mishnah, the tailor should not go out with his needle close to dark, close to sunset. And what's called close to sunset? The same way we saw Samuch L'Mincha. Samuch L'Mincha is a half hour before Mincha. The Samuch L'Chashecha also, the way the Chafetz Chaim translates Samuch L'Chashecha, is a half hour before sunset. That would be the time you already should not be going out with your needle. What's the problem? Shema Yishkach. Maybe you'll forget that you have the needle, you're carrying the needle, and v'yetzei, and you're going to go out with the needle. Maybe you'll come to carry the needle with you when it's Shabbat. Similarly, lo yetzei halavla, lo halavla. The lavla is the scribe, the man who writes. That's his job for a profession. He should not go out with his quill. He can't go out with his pen. L'kumaso, also within a half hour before sunset, because we're afraid he's going to carry that quill on Shabbat. Now, v'lo yifaleh et kelav. The Mishnah now talks about another halacha, about shaking out little insects that might be in one's garments. So it says you cannot shake out those insects, v'lo yikra, and you cannot read from it. You can't read from a text. If you have a lantern, a light, let's say you have a lantern, an oil lantern, and the issue is you might come to move the oil lantern to, let's say if the light is dim, you're trying to read something. Jonathan, I was thinking about you. I miss you. Thank you. Welcome back. And if you have the right, if the light is dim, you might move the lamp to get more oil to the wick, and you get more oil to the wick, and you're enhancing the light, making the light brighter. That would be a violation of mavir, of making a fire on Shabbat. And therefore, the rabbis created a fence. Don't read by that oil lamp close on Shabbat. And also, if you're shaking out those insects from the garment, you shouldn't also do it according to one interpretation of the Mishnah. It's talking by the oil of the lamp. You shouldn't. The issue is obviously that you maybe also will move the lamp also in order to help you in supervising your removing of those insects from shaking out those insects to make sure that they got out. and therefore you cannot do that because we're afraid you might come to move the lamp. The emet amru, in truth, and then it says the emet amru. They said, now what is the emet? In the word emet, we find in the Yerushalmi, in the Jerusalem Talmud, that any time the rabbis use the word emet, it's halacha lamoshe misinai. Generally, it means it's a halacha from Sinai. And sometimes we say that sometimes be'emet is not referring to halacha from Sinai, rather a rabbinic fence. And the word emet means it's very clear. It's just like a halacha al Moshe Sinai that you do not. There's no question. It's a halacha from Sinai. It's a given law. So be'emet is something that means in truth. It's something in truth that's very clear. There's no question about it. And be'emet amru, and that's over here also. This does not mean it's not a halacha l'monijah. It's not halacha l'moshe Sinai, because halacha l'moshe Sinai means like this week's parasha is Yitro, which is the Aseret HaDibrot, the giving of the Torah. So, as we know, Moshe Rabbeinu, after he got the Torah, the day later, after the 10 Commandments, he went up to receive the Luchot. And he was there for 40 days and 40 nights. And what was he doing there for 40 days, 40 nights? So the Smag explains how Hashem was telling Moshe the explanation of the Torah, and also obviously the halacha that Hashem gave to Moshe at Sinai. Those are biblical, those are on the warning. Those are on the Bible that have a similar status as a biblical law. But this emet in truth is referring to a rabbinic law over here. The emet amru hachazan, the chazan ro'eh hichon atinoket korin, avolu lo yikra. Now, what is this referring to? So Rashi brings two explanations of this, what this means. So one explanation is that the chazan, the one who teaches the children, they would teach the kids also on Shabbat, and the one who would teach the children to read, and he wants to prepare, he wants to look at the Sefer Torah to see where, what he needs to, where they need to begin tomorrow, where they should begin, where they should end. So this type of reading is not something that's done over a long period of time. And how long is it going to take the Chazan to find the place where they're going to begin tomorrow, where they're going to end tomorrow? But since it's not an extended period of time, we're not concerned he's going to come to move the lamp. He'll be on top of his game. When you get involved in something, you maybe already forget that it's Shabbat, you might move the lamp, right? If you're reading for a certain amount of time at the oil lamp, you might forget over a period of time and move it. But if you're only there you're doing it for a few minutes, a very short amount of time now, then we're not afraid that within that time you can forget and get so involved in what you're doing that you're going to forget and move the lamp. Therefore, it says, "Hachazan ro'eh hichan tinokot korin." The Chazan is able to look and to see where the children need to read from, according to that explanation. But he himself, he cannot read and practice the light, but he could go ahead and look for those few moments. That's one pshat in Rashi. And the other pshat that Rashi says is he's the shamash of the shul, and one of his jobs is to call the 7 aliyot, the people morning asaf, people to get an aliyah in the Torah in the morning, and sometimes when he did not know where the people need to read from, right? He's in charge to call up the 7 people. And when he didn't know exactly where exactly to read from, morning Emmanuel, morning everybody, Boker Tov. So what he would do, he would look, where are the kids reading? When the kids, Friday night, they would read the Parsha Shavua in the synagogue. The children would be in the synagogue Friday night. He would go ahead and he would look, where are the kids reading from? What parsha are they reading? The kids will always be reading the weekly parsha. And the pasuk and the Mishnah teaches us that even though he's not allowed to read the Torah, he's not allowed to read, practice himself by the light of a lamp in order to to practice the reading, but nevertheless he could look in the children's by the svarim of the children. You look at where are they reading from. The children had svarim. The children had Hebrew books. They had a Torah. They might have like a scroll for Bereshit, a scroll for Shemot, like 5 books, not like a Sefer Torah in one scroll. Most probably they might have had, and he would look at where are they reading from, because and he'll know for tomorrow where he needs to read from as the Baal Koreh. He'll need to know where the people he's going to be calling up for Aliyot, where they have to read by looking over the shoulder. He could look into it. It's interesting. He didn't want to interrupt the kids in their reading. You could just say, or you don't need to interrupt the kids. He could go in and look where they're reading, even though the kids are reading. Where are the kids reading from? They're reading at night from the candlelight, from the oil lamp. Now, why are they allowed to read by the oil lamp? Because you're not afraid the kids are going to move anything. A little bit more respect. They have. I'm not going to. They're not. You don't touch. You don't touch. Hands off, right? The kids understand it's not my place to move the oil lamp. So even if the oil will be a little dim, and the light will not be so good, he will not do it on his own, and therefore he would most probably ask permission. The rabbi would say it's Shabbat, you can't do it. So the kids will not move the oil lamp. But you're an adult, you might come to move the oil lamp, but since you're only looking over the shoulder to see where the place is where the kids are up to, that's a very short amount of time. We're not afraid you're going to forget to move the oil lamp. But if you would be actually reading there as an adult for a long period of time, then there's a concern you might move the oil lamp. We'll continue on Monday. Even though Monday is President's Day, it will be regular time. I think most people, a lot of people have a regular working day on Monday. That sounds good? Yeah, sounds good. Unless people want a later time. Regular. Would that work for you, regular time? Does it? I think it's regular minyanim, but we'll see. It's usually Thanksgiving, and so that's the type of day they have at different times. But because they can't. Very good question. Because number one, the candles. If you might come to, if you move a candle, candles used for fire purposes, and a fire it's muktzeh. You might come to take out the fire. That's something you have no use on Shabbat. You can't do anything with the fire on Shabbat. You can't move. You can't move that item. Right. So but they didn't move it. You can't move it. You could burn it. You could burn it. It's like your Shabbat candles Friday night. You use it for its light. You can use it for its light. But here the question is very good. But the reason why you light Shabbat candles is one of the reasons is number one, there should be light in the house. People shouldn't fall. For Shalom Bayit. And second, another reason is because the light, by lighting the candles, you're adding to the Shabbat meal. Elegance, honor, a night light, whatever you call it. So that's, but good point, Emmanuel.
Right, so the practical purpose, so you should be able to move it. There's a reason for it.
Yeah, but it's a type of, it's a type of it's a high level muktzeh that you might come to do a sin with this if you move it. It might go out, and so these types, therefore you can't handle the thing. But another point what you're saying is to benefit from the light of the candle, there's no problem. I want to eat from the light of the candle, not a problem. The issue that the Gemara is talking about, if I'm going to read by the candle, reading, which more meticulous type of, they were more concerned I might come to move the light. There you're not allowed to read by an oil lamp, the Mishnah is saying. But if you want to have a dinner at an oil lamp, The kids could, but adults can't. The kids won't touch it because they know not to touch. They won't. They know that as kids they don't touch things. That's one answer. But adults might move it, so therefore we would not read by an oil lamp because of that problem. Have a great day, everybody. So have a great day.